Come back on. Okay, folks, we'll be with you in just a moment. So you've got about 2-3 minutes. Go and share it out on Facebook, Twitter. Let's crash this stream tonight because we are going deep woo. And it's not just the weekend crew either. We've got Ryan Gable in the house. So please hit share, hit like. Remember, you can get a membership on the channel. You can unlock all those cool, crazy emojis. Lee Veltman in the chat room. Dude, keep a night free next weekend. Loved seeing you on the stream today. Already loved you. Love you even more now though, guy. Honestly, brilliant. We'll be back in a minute. So there we go, troops. We are back. We've got 100 odd people queuing up, waiting to see us. So let's waste no more time. Welcome back to the weekend stream right here from the Weekenders. It's not quite the Kev Baker show because this is us all joining forces to try and bring you not only good information, but a lot of fun and laughs and infotainment along the way as well. None of us here are going to claim to save the world, folks, and we certainly don't have all of the answers. We're no better or any worse than any of you out there. I tell you what, we've all got this thirst for truth, this thirst for knowledge. And tonight we are going deep woo. Look at this, we've even got Ryan Gable on camera today. I am very, very honoured indeed. We've got Joe Joseph here, Jimmy Jeans is in the house, and Scotty Lopez is plastered to his bed right now.
That poor son of a gun.
No.
Boy, he's really suffering right now, isn't he, Kev?
I'm disappointed, Joe. I'm really disappointed.
Me too. I would have freaking ate that brownie and came on the air too.
Exactly. I'm a big fan of Joey Diaz, and he loves to give his guests the magic stars, obviously edibles. The amount of people he has fucked up with edibles is unbelievable. And I was hoping we would see Scott a bit messy tonight.
Oh, me too. There's nothing. All I could say is that would be some extremely, extremely quality entertainment. Yeah, so I'm really freaking disappointed that he chickened out.
But it's okay.
It's all good.
It's all good because we've got Ryan here. We've got Jimmy here as well. I'll come to Ryan in a moment. But Jimmy, I can tell you'll be chomping at the bit to get into some of this information tonight. Magic, the occult, Crowley, esoteric knowledge, all your kind of stuff, dude.
Pink headphones.
Oh, come on. His pink headphones look nice, man.
Fag.
Champagne coloured.
Fag.
Jimmy's not even talking to us now, like.
Did you know the whole reason that Sean Penn got the role in Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Because of one thing and one thing only.
What's that?
Because of the way he said one thing. You know what it was?
No.
What a dick!
You kind of brought that one on yourself, Joe, I must admit. So
the director, they were going to hire somebody else, and they couldn't get anybody to say it like Sean Penn, and Sean Penn knew he was in the driver's seat.
Sean Penn's cool, dude.
Him.
I like him, dude. I do like him. We don't have Sean Penn here tonight. We've got somebody better. We've got Ryan Gable. And for anyone who hasn't heard of Ryan, he's a veteran radio personality and producer for his show called The Secret Teachings. Check out the secretteachings.info.
And we can only hope and pray that Ryan isn't easily offended.
Oh, no. You see, Ryan is cut from the same dodgy cloth as us, Joe. That's why he's the perfect fit.
So, I love me some dodgy cloth.
His broadcast focuses on the synchronicity of alternative news, health, history, philosophy, the paranormal, symbolism, and now we're getting into it, the occult, esoteric, alchemy, magic with the K, and more in the most distinct ways by finding parallels and patterns often overlooked. Now you can check out the rest of Ryan's bio over at thesecretteachings.info, but I don't want to waste any more time. So Ryan, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey Kev, hey everybody. I'm glad to be here. I'm not easily offended by it, but I am triggered on occasion.
We like triggers. Okay.
Yeah, I got triggered today. I was watching Lee Veltman and OG Wan Kenobi on a stream, and I got triggered several times. Not by the guys on the stream, but by the chat room, believe it or not. It was unbelievable, really? Yeah. There was just a troll in there trying to trigger people, and I was disappointed because I knew he was trying to trigger people. And I ended up... I think probably didn't even have the IQ to understand what Q was. This guy was lost in a world of, well, we'll get into that as the show progresses. We can have a laugh with that later. But today, we were thinking going deep woo, Joe, and we spoke to Ryan the other night. And Ryan, you've wrote a couple of books, and you've got one there that is very, very relevant to all the kind of stuff that we're going to be getting into tonight. But I need to ask you, man, what set you on this path to look into the esoteric, the occult, the dark stuff?
Well, when I was younger, I always had an interest in things that were paranormal, things that were unknown, things that were mysterious. Last time I was on your show, Kev, we talked about it just a few days ago. After high school, I go to film school for a couple of years. I was friends with someone who introduced me to this guy who was also interested in those kinds of things. And he had a radio show. So we started doing radio together, and I had to find a way to fill the time that I had on radio. Later, he passed away. I took over. And so I really had to find a way to fill that time slot, 2 hours a week, which I thought was a massive amount of time to be on air talking.
I remember when Joe Joseph said to me, "Come on, Kev, don't do 1 hour, do 2."
Holy shit. No, you know what's funny about that, Ryan? When I first started, I also had a partner in crime that passed away and kind of handed over the reins to me after he died, of course. But A.C. Griffith, who was big into the chemtrail conspiracy, he was the one that blew the lid off it. And he passed away, and it was kind of like, well, here you go. So it's funny how that happened. Wow.
Told you. All cut from the same cloth, Ryan.
AC was great.
Dodgy cloth.
I loved AC. AC was great, man.
Yeah.
We have a very similar background. I had no idea.
That's pretty interesting.
I like to think that when I first got started in radio, just like anybody else in any other field, I thought that I knew quite a bit. And then, of course, like most of us, we realize we don't really know that much. And what I did learn, I think I mentioned to you last time we did the show, Kev, that the only thing that I really have learned over this long period of time, now for me about 9 years, going on a decade, is that it's cliche to say I don't really know anything, but I've learned to use objective, critical thinking in my analysis of whatever the subject might be, from occultism and magic to philosophy, history, and food.
It humbles you, doesn't it, Ryan?
I've learned. Yes, humble.
Yeah, it's a very humbling experience when you start going down these holes and you find out that, people will tell you, man, you know so much. But really, in the grand scheme of things, you start to learn that we know very little about.
True wisdom comes from the acceptance that you can't know it all, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you scroll there on my website, you scroll up a little bit. I have a quote from Manly Hall right underneath of there. Wisdom is not bestowed, it is achieved. I always like that. I've used that since the beginning of the radio. Wisdom is not bestowed, it is achieved. It's not something somebody is going to give you. Something that you must achieve yourself. People can help you. I mean, people like us, we do this because we try to assist others in information that has assisted us in understanding and becoming more humble, perhaps. Nobody's going to give it to us, though.
I'll never forget the first time I learned about balance. There has to be balance in order for you to be truly successful in life. You kind of have to balance things out. There's wisdom, and then there's intelligence, and they're two totally different things. I'll give you a good example. When I was working with the government, I worked with a lot of engineers, a lot of extremely bright engineers, book smart engineers. And to give you an example, I was going for my degree, and I had a math assignment I had to do. And I don't remember the gist of the actual question, but I brought it to one of my engineer friends, and he goes, "Wow, the answer's 17, but I don't know how I got there. Hold on." Because that's how he was. He could see the answer before he'd have to actually backtrack. It took him longer to do the work and figure it out than actually answer the question. But he was an extremely book smart individual. However, when it came to people skills, interacting with people, everything else, he couldn't do it. So everybody thought he was a dick, but he wasn't. He was the nicest guy in the world. He was just off balance. He was off kilter. He was so freaking intelligent. It's like all his resources went to that, and none of it went to people skills. None of it went to, the things, the wisdom. But boy, oh boy, he could rattle things off like crazy because he was unbelievably book smart and had the ability to retain that information. Outside of that, when it comes to life, he was dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah, I feel like that sometimes. I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys feel like that too sometimes?
Yeah.
Anybody listening?
I would imagine a lot of people can really relate to this. I know a lot of people, highly intelligent, no common sense. Absolutely no common sense whatsoever.
Well, psychopaths tend to be very, very intelligent. In fact, if you read some of the black books, I was talking to my friend Joe Roop, who hosts Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM, coming on 4 nights a week. Out of the 5 nights my show airs. And we were talking about some of the black books, some of the grimoires, and some people that have written books on human sacrifice. And these people are not ignorant. They're not dumb. They're highly, highly, highly intelligent. A lot of the people that are in positions of power that are very psychotic, that can't empathize with their victims, these people are not dumb. They're very intelligent. They might not be that wise, but they're cunning, they're deceptive, and they're very intelligent.
No, absolutely. Now, you've got a book there. What's the name of the book so we can kind of get into what some of the topics that you've got in that? Because that really takes us into this magic, occult, esoteric knowledge. Yeah. And I think sometimes, a lot of this is misunderstood, guys, because you hear about esoteric knowledge and magic and the occult, and there's this kind of almost knee-jerk reaction that it must be dark, it must be bad. But when you start to dig below the surface, it's not exactly like that. It's not as quite clearly defined as that, is it, Ryan?
No, it's not at all. My book here is called Occult Arcana, and there's a very lengthy subtitle to it that explains all of the details that are in the book. It's called A Mystic's Study of Philosophy, Theology, Science, Mythology, Symbolism, Theurgy, Magic, Alchemy, and Superstition, Psychic Abilities, Sigils, Stones, Filters, Herbs, Charms, Talismans, Spells, and Curses. That's the entire title of the book, and I titled it after a book called The Magus, which was one of the more profound books I've ever read on esotericism. It's a more complex book than reading some things by like an Eliphas Levi or an Arthur Veit, but it's a really, really interesting book. And when I read books, I tend to find book after book after book that kind of link together. I don't know if you guys have had this experience. Yeah. Some people call it synchronicity.
Yep. Yeah.
In fact, I just went back to an old Jim Marrs book, Rule by Secrecy. I've only read the thing once. I read it back in like 2010, and I was listening to a David Icke broadcast the other day, and he mentioned General Smedley. I think it was a General Smedley Butler, and his book War is a Racket. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to get a copy of that. So I ordered a copy of War is a Racket, and then I just, for some reason, I thought I want to read Jim Marrs' book again. So I opened it up, and the first thing I open up to, I start reading again. It's a quote by Smedley Butler. So I thought, okay.
That's
I need to read this book again.
Yeah, that's the kind of, Joe used to tell me there's little road signs, little markers along the way that you're on the right path.
But it ends
it's almost
up being
divine.
I want to simplify it as best I can, because it doesn't matter what religious affiliation you associate with or anything else. It really boils down to this: if your heart is truly seeking the truth, and I mean it truly is, and you're sending it out there, you will find it. You will find your truth. But your truth may not necessarily be Kev's truth or my truth or Ryan's truth, because something that they found out. As a matter of fact, there was a science article I think we went over.
I was just going to say, Joe, you found a quantum article that said, me and you can view the same thing, but we'll see it differently, but we'll both
see
right.
It differently, right. So our realities, our truths, are as unique as the fingerprints on our hand, right, on our fingers. Is that just because, and that's the problem. See, what happens is, and the asshole control freaks know this, they try to cookie cutter everything in human existence, whether it be education, whether it be spirituality, you name it. They try to cookie cutter and streamline and say, well, 98.6 is the normal human body temperature. Okay, but what they don't say is that's the average. So that means that there's outliers. There may be somebody whose normal body temperature is 97.8, And the fact is, just because you're not 98.6 doesn't mean that you're a freak, doesn't mean that you're some sort of anomaly. It has nothing to do with that. It just means that you're different. And that's the issue with society these days. That's why our kids, we're pumping out idiot children that become idiot adults, is because we think that you can send them down the assembly line and stamp USDA on their ass as they get their freaking toilet paper certificate. It's absolute bullshit. And you have to break free of that and understand that we are all individuals. We're all unique. And you cannot treat yourself as part of the crowd. You have to be and exert your power individually. And when you do that and you say, okay, look, I want to know the truth about this. I want to know the truth about the history of the earth or what spirituality is. You'll get there if your heart's truly seeking. But don't expect it to be the same as mine or Kev's or Ryan's or anybody else. It's going to be totally different, because it's unique to you. Yeah.
That's the relativity in experience and the relativity in how we view things. Though we have to be careful when we use the word truth that we understand how each of us define it relatively, because what is the truth to you might not be the truth to me. Sure,
exactly.
There are some things that are absolutely truthful and that are documented and factual. Like, for example, if I say, I wrote this book, and you say, well, my truth is that you didn't do it. You tell me, like Obama, you didn't write that. You didn't publish that. Well, that's not true. I did do that. So in that case, you'd be wrong, and that's not a truth. Although you can choose to live by that truth, it would be incorrect. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, choose that belief system because it's easier to cope, and that's what we call ignorance is bliss.
Correct.
So you deal with symbols. That's one of the topics I want to get into tonight. And of course, my symbol, my logo for the show here, oh, Joe, don't be doing that. We'll be, look at him now, we'll be all accused of doing things with our hands and covering our eyes and things. But I've got this logo, and I actually paid a graphic designer. I said, I'm going to be doing a conspiracy podcast, Illuminati type stuff, and I want to be controversial. So he came back to me with this broken up triangle, radio transmitter over the top. I knew it would trigger people. But then PG happened, and we had the list of symbols that were allegedly from the FBI, and mine looks very, very similar to somebody who has a fascination in younger people. What is the thing with symbols, Ryan, and should we put so much emphasis on a symbol? Does it not matter the intent behind it, the actual purpose it's there for, or does my symbol just automatically mean I'm a bad dude?
Well, I guess we could look at the word truth again, and to someone who looks at, for example, the front cover of my book, I have cards also that I've now started to hand out with the cover of the book on it. And if you have a look real close there, you'll see somewhere around the center of the book, there is the very loathed swastika. And to a lot of people, they see the swastika and they immediately think that you are a Nazi, right?
Yep.
So to a lot of people, they think that you're a Nazi despite how you may express the reasoning and the intentionality behind your usage of such a symbol. I actually, it's not in the background here, I actually have a German war flag with a giant swastika and Maltese cross on it. And I also have behind me a Japanese battle flag. You can see that in the video. I have a Templar flag on my wall. I have all kinds of flags. I have all kinds of symbols. I have swastikas, pentagrams, triquetras. I've got animal symbols. I've got an entire zodiac wheel behind me. And when people come into my room when I was younger, when I was in film school, I had all these kinds of flags, and people would come over to the apartment. I had a roommate at the time, and they'd walk in my room and they'd see of all the stuff that I had hanging up, they'd see the swastika and they'd panic. And I said, why don't you think I'm like a Japanese imperialist? I have a giant Japanese flag hanging up in the background. Why don't you think I'm like a member of the Knights Templar? I have a Templar flag. Why do you immediately think that I'm a Nazi and ignore all of the other symbols? And that's really the beautiful thing in a way. It's almost ironic because it's beautiful that every single person can look at that symbol and they can see something entirely different. But at the core, those symbols have a certain meaning, like regardless of what the swastika has been used for and regardless of what people think the swastika is, at its core, for example, in the usage of the swastika in my book, I actually have a kind of a chapter not on the swastika but on the cross. And that's what the swastika is. It's a cross that is twisted and bent. A friend of mine who is a musician, he's a rapper, he said a swastika is just a cross doing a cartwheel, which it is. And there are very, very deep meanings embedded in that symbol, such as the 4 quadrants, the 4 elements, the 4 corners of the earth, the 4 winds, the 4 cherubim, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all concealed in one symbol. It's beautiful. Whether it's a cross, whether it's a swastika, you get something like a triquetra. I like that symbol. The pentagram also has that same symbolism because you have the 4 points. Those are the 4 corners. And then you have the 5th point like the Ankh with the circle on top of the cross. That is consciousness rising forth from the 4 points of matter. So to answer your question, if I use the swastika, it has one meaning to me. And although I understand the meaning that it will have to other people, I'm not going to limit my usage of it because people will see it differently than if they were actually to pick up my book and read the book. They would see and understand that there's no white supremacy in this book.
Yeah,
it's
right.
all about occultism. It's all about history and mythology and philosophy and magic and things like that. And I think that really is the essence of magic. Because if I know, just like being triggered, if I know that someone will react negatively to that symbol, I could use it to trigger that person and to manipulate and control them. And that's the importance and the power behind understanding what certain symbols mean and how other people perceive them, because if you can understand that, then you can easily manipulate and you can easily distort other people's realities, which I think is why when you look at corporate logos, something I've done on my show before, corporate logos all tend to use the very same type of symbolism, whether it's in colors like red and yellow, because those have been scientifically demonstrated to get people's attention and make them hungry. So fast food restaurants use red and yellow. Those are colors, those are symbols. Or companies use powerful symbols like the sun and like the pyramid because it's powerful and it communicates to us on a subconscious level. And maybe we trust that company now. So that's what's really, really important, I think. And the beauty, as I said, is that it can mean billions of different things, billions of different perspectives. But the intention of its usage is what really, really matters in each specific individual case.
Yeah, Jimmy, intent is so, so important, especially when it comes to symbols and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the symbols themselves, as far as, going back into antiquity, before there was a lexicon of understanding around philosophies and whatever philosophies we may be aware of now, if you look at these symbols back through antiquity, they do represent a geometrical form, the representative of the logos. They have a frequency-based shockwave associated with them, regardless of what language you speak. If a person sees a particular geometric shape or form, it will resonate with the person in some way or another, depending. And so a lot of these, like for example, the swastika is lumped in with the Hitler movement a lot of times, but it was the representative of the sun in other civilizations.
Yeah, it's a sun symbol, isn't it? I mean, I think it's a Hindu sun symbol, is it not, Ryan?
Yeah, I used to bring that up when I was first learning about the swastika. I would tell people, well, you can find this on Hindu temples. And literally, someone told me one time that's because the Nazis invaded India and put those swastikas there. So that's really? Part of history. I didn't learn that in AP class, but apparently,
whoa,
that's what's being taught in colleges today.
Well, who knows? All I know is I got bowls, pictures of bowls that I'm pretty sure happened way before Hitler ever marched anywhere, and they have swastikas all over them. So the symbol's been around long before Hitler was ever there, and that's 100%, a fact. So I don't know. I never really heard that before, Ryan. That's interesting. I definitely want to check that out.
I also heard just on that note, it was at the same time period. I used to go to colleges like UCF, or I would go to Daytona Beach and we'd hand out, it was like an anti-war demonstration, but it really wasn't a protest. We just got together. Sometimes it was part of We Are Change. Sometimes some of us got together and just handed out DVDs and flyers. One time we went to UCF and we were doing a 9/11 demonstration. We were handing out DVDs and flyers. And we were talking to the model UN students. And they thought that they were very smart. They thought that they were very wise because they were in the model UN. And they said, you guys are conspiracy theorists, of course, the same standard line. And we got into a conversation. And I said, well, can you explain to me how Building 7 collapsed? And they told me there were dozens of propane tanks. This is what they told me. Dozens of propane tanks that simultaneously exploded, compromising every single column in Building 7 simultaneously, and then that brought the building down. although there weren't propane tanks even used in that building nor in any high-rise building as far as architects are concerned that I've asked. But hey, I don't know. I guess people just create their own truth, right?
That's a good day to look at, right? Because that date, that fateful date, and I won't say the numbers together because that will trigger algorithms, right? But
Yes,
a lot of people
careful.
say that was a magical ritual that happened that day. And if you go to the front cover of your book there, Ryan, you've got the two pillars. You've got Joachim and Boaz, two towers. Yep. And of course, two towers were very significant that day as well. Do you think it was some kind of magical experiment? Well, not experiment, but ritual.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done shows on that before. Every year I do a 9/11 show. I know a lot of radio shows do a 9/11 kind of memorial show. I used to have Richard Gage on a lot. And last year I did a show specifically about the occult nature of September 11th in New York specifically. There are, of course, the two towers, as you just mentioned, but then you also have the Pentagon, which is a pentagram. And so the Pentagon, or the pentagram, was lit on fire. Meanwhile, the twin towers, the two pillars, like in Lord of the Rings, those were brought down. So you have the two pillars of Solomon's temple. You have the destruction of those two pillars. This would bring about a new age. It's the destruction of the old temple, the destruction of the old age, and the bringing in of a new. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's the new world order. That's just a label that you apply to something, kind of like Illuminati. It's just a label that you apply to a concept more than anything. But yes, I think it was a ritual, and I think that when you look at what happened after 9/11, I think that's more significant to demonstrate and to prove that it was a ritual and that the subject matter of 9/11 is much more than just political. It's much more than just conspiratorial. It's very magical in nature. And in fact, I'll give you one quick example. I lived in Boise, Idaho, and there's a pathway there that goes around the city. It's called the Green Belt. You take a walk, take a bike ride. It's very nice. And other than turning their human rights memorial into a very specific Anne Frank memorial, which I thought was really weird, there was another memorial there. It was a 9/11 memorial. And they supposedly had, I mean, I saw it, but I don't know if it was actually from the World Trade Center. They supposedly had a piece of steel from the World Trade Center. And it was like memorialized in this relic-like setting in the middle of a park. And in fact, Clyde Lewis, a friend of ours, we did a show about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where we talked about the religious nature of things like 9/11 and some of these larger world events. And that is, of course, at the foundation of things like the opening ceremonies to the Olympics, the closing ceremonies, the Super Bowl halftime show. So many people, millions of people paying attention, directing their energy towards something. You know, if you were in a position of power and you did practice various kinds of, let's say, magical rituals, it'd be a really, really good time to utilize the energy of people that are watching it organically to carry out whatever it is you believe you're doing behind the scenes. Regardless if anybody listening believes that, there are people that really do believe that.
Yep. And of course, you had the Solomon building as well, Joe, didn't you? Solomon's temple aspect to the whole kind of, you could tie that in with the ritual that went down on 9/11. And I was asking Ryan when you were away there, just to catch you up. I mean, a lot of people say that was really a magical ritual. And I think there was lots of aspects to that day that were definitely ritualistic.
I think anybody can take advantage of the situation, I guess you can say. But there was definitely coordination to it. There is definitely enough talk of it, both before and after, and also some incredibly eerie clues that something like this was going to happen. I bring you to St. John the Divine's Cathedral in New York City, where some of their architecture prophetically predicted the fall of the Twin Towers. And then also, you know, I think it was The Simpsons, right?
Mm-hmm.
These things are put out there. Oftentimes people don't realize that they're doing it. You know, that it's not like the person doing The Simpsons was like, ooh, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag and draw this and put this here. No, that's not what happens. But you can be used as a vessel to promote a message or bring something to the forefront. One of the things that I found is that in this all, one of the critical components of these events and these things are the ones that are perpetrating them. I think one of the rules is, Jimmy, that they have to put out what they're going to do before they do it. It's kind of like it's one of those rules that they follow. Johnny King talks about it all the time, he being a warlock. And that's something that I find interesting, because you find evidence of that with all of these events, you know, and unfortunately hindsight's 2020, and that's typically when you find these things are in hindsight, because you don't know until after it happens.
Well, where attention goes, that's where energy flows, you know, and attention is almost intention. And what we have is a mass media culture where rituals can be performed in situations where there's an intense amount of viewers that are putting their attention on the intention of the ritual. And the energy is pretty much the same. It's an energetic pushing of energy in a direction based on a direct intention, based on astronomical and astrological lineups of powerful systems of geometry and electrical charges. You know, it's an electric universe. So when these things line up, powerful moments happen. And in those moments is when rituals are performed and energy is, you know, a lot of what magic is energy being directed at something, and whatever the weakness is of the something is what would come apart on the intended victim of the magic. In other words, if somebody cursed you, it wouldn't necessarily mean what people may think. It may mean that you're just bothered by a bunch of really well-timed rugs being pulled out from under you when you're going through your life. The rest of your life, it seems okay. You wouldn't even think you were cursed, but just at these crucial moments in time is when the rug gets pulled out and you end up back, you know, one step up, two steps back.
Yeah.
So subtle energies and subtle ways of generating outcomes just through the energies that we find naturally, some of the things that Tesla talked about. But on a large scale, when you have millions and millions of unconscious creators with their imaginations captured by a seductive quality to whatever it is that we see, it's easy to suck people in and have them create the reality that you want. Like I said, if you go and bow down and everyone prays at the altar of negativity, if you want to go get hammered by somebody telling you how bad everything is all day, every day, if you want to get hammered on that, then look at the reality that since that person's gotten so popular, look at the reality that we've created. I mean, we're creating the reality that we were so scared was going to come. It's just coming anyway, and the years keep going by, don't they?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. It's funny you say that. Before the broadcast, I was doing a little reading, you know, and exactly what you're saying was this guy's answer to things. Yefim Shubensov, also known as the Mad Russian. He's up here in Brookline, Mass. What he's known for is utilizing what he manipulates people's energy to cure them of their addictions. And he's been extremely successful. He basically has like a session a day. Has about 20 people there. Most of them are trying to quit smoking or drinking or whatever. And he just sits there and he does this. You just see him do this and that's it. And it's done. And you wouldn't believe the success rate this guy has. Just what he says, manipulating energy. And he says it's an ancient thing. that we've just kind of lost.
That's what I was going to ask, Ryan, because in your research, where does this all come from? How far back can you trace this knowledge that you can manipulate things almost magically through energy?
There are a couple of principles of magic, especially if you read the work of Cornelius Agrippa, and that's the foundation for Western occultism, that all magic is not only intention, but magic deals in the sympathies and antipathies of natural processes. And that's the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. An example of that would be the hurricane and the galaxy. Looks very similar. The vortex energy, kind of like the electrons buzzing around the nucleus of an atom, just like planets orbiting around a star.
That's where I was going, man.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful thing, Kev. And when you understand that, as in Hermeticism, that's what as above, so below means. I think a lot of people take it to mean there are aliens above, and those aliens came down to Earth. I think that's kind of an ancient aliens point of view. But this goes back thousands and thousands of years. I'd argue that it goes back before recorded time, and I'd say that it probably goes back to the formation of something called animism, the belief that everything is animated by spirit, everything is animated by some kind of soul. And so if you understand that and have a basic knowledge or a basic perception that everything is animated, everything has a soul, everything is alive below, then everything also above is animated and has a soul and has a spirit. And some are higher than others. And so in order to call down the spirits or to call down the soul or to call down the energy, the virtues of that which is above to that which is below, you perform certain rituals that are in the likeness of those gods and those goddesses and spirit, whatever you choose to call them. And so, for example, if you wanted to call down the power of the sun, you'd use something like the color gold. You'd use a gold-colored thread. You'd use a lion, because a lion is an animal of the sun, a very fiery spirit. Same thing if you were going to call down Saturn, destruction, blackness, you'd use black, you'd use a goat, things like that. So that's really the foundation for Western occultism from people like Cornelius Agrippa and others. That's something that I read, a 1,000 plus page book. It's enormous. Maybe I'll get it here in a second and show the listeners. And that's really what I got out of it. Out of thousands of pages, it's that basic concept and that basic understanding. But we also have to remember that magic is intention, and we practice magic every single day. When we connected on the Skype call, you asked me how are you doing, Ryan? How's it going? I think that's a magical phrase. I think language is magical. If I tell somebody, have a nice day, it was nice speaking with you, well, that might actually influence them to have a better day, as opposed to people just telling them, oh, you're a piece of garbage, you're horrible, you're ugly, you're disgusting, you're gross. That probably is going to weigh on you. I think a lot of us have had that experience, whether it's in a relationship or it's family, people telling you that you're worthless. You start to believe it after a while. Yeah. And then magic is to rise above that so you have power over other people rather than people having power over you. And understanding that morally prevents you from exercising that power to harm other people. Instead, you use magic to help other people. And I want to say one more thing about what you guys said relating to relating to how these people do things that are public and they tell you they're going to do them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily a law. I wouldn't use that word. But when I read the work of Eliphas Levi, for example, he talks about that very thing. And let me read you a quotation from him.
Excellent.
He says, the more difficult or horrible the operation, the greater is its power, because it acts more strongly on the imagination and confirms effort in the direct ratio of resistance. And that, I think, is why something like September 11th, which was about destruction of more than just the Twin Towers. It was the destruction of an empire. It was the destruction of what those towers represent. And esoterically speaking, they represent a lot. But specifically, they represent strength. They represent beauty. And the destruction of strength and the destruction of beauty has led us to be a very weak and a very ugly country. And that's just looking at the United States of America. There are several other layers to this. 9/11 was also a trauma and an SRA, satanic ritual abuse, as some call it, sexual traumas and things like that. This is what conditions and programs people to act according to the will of others.
Jimmy, I think you've got the one up, Jimmy, have you?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is a great conversation. Thanks so much for joining us on Saturday here with the crew, because it's a great conversation. You mentioned the Hermetic principles. I, I'm really interested in Hermes Trismegistus and Thoth and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and some of what they talk about there. And I think there's pretty intense references to the way that energy was used in the past on the planet. And I think, when we start talking about these forces on the earth, whether, magic in and of itself isn't necessarily, I mean, I'm sure you'll agree, Ryan, black or white. Magic in and of itself is a science. And like you guys were talking about, the intention behind whatever the practitioner is engaging in will dictate whether that's a negative force or a positive force. But a lot of times in these darker circles, the things that are right, and there really is no right and wrong. In other words, if you do it, it's right. There's nothing wrong with it, because you will do, like so many people quote Crowley, as thou wilt. What do you think about the rise? I mean, there's been an intense rise. We brought this up the other day. It's like Coke and Pepsi. It's like Christianity is Coke, and Pepsi is the choice of a new generation. And that is these darker imaginings. I mean, you mentioned imagination, capturing the imagination, as Freeman used to go into so many years ago about Disney, capturing the children's imagination, because as conscious creators, there's really nothing that as a people, I don't think we could not accomplish. But by them capturing the imagination, having role models and setting these wheels in motion, we see this Harry Potter series that came out, Kev. And that's been hammered into a bunch of generations. And I mean, if you're trying to get a child to believe in something that he can't see, he or she can't see in the clouds, and he prays because he wants a new bike, but he doesn't get it, why wouldn't he just go ahead and just get into this whole magic thing? Because he can be a sorcerer just like Harry Potter. That I think, the pop culture shaping has put us in a position where, because of the darkness that we see so prevalent in the planet and on the planet, the darkness that sort of seems like it's washing over everything and just sort of taking over.
Well, what would you say to that then? What would you say to that then, Ryan?
Well, first off, magic is a form of science. I 100% agree. In fact, that's how I start my book, is a section on magic being science, the Occult Arcana book, which you can find at www.thesecretteachings.info. It's not sold anywhere else. But magic is science, the understanding and the idea that, let's say, for example, let's just take a god, pick a random god, god of storms, god of water, god of lightning, whatever. Well, the understanding to the average person that lightning is occurring, that storm is occurring because of a god, and whatever you might have done or not have done to infuriate that god, or maybe you did something to please the god, so they gave you rain for the crops. That was an understanding that the average person might have had as to why there were weather events. However, to the priestly class, who at the time were kind of like meteorologists, they understood weather patterns. So if they could predict, let's say, a rainstorm, to the average person, not only was that magic, it was otherworldly, it was supernatural. And so the priests acquired this kind of godlike image. And so magic is science. Mythology is likewise science. It was that's what I just kind of implied with the gods and goddesses. It's a very similar form of science. And in fact, if you have a look at something like the four elements: water, earth, air, and fire. I like that today the scientific community, and I say I like in a very derogatory way. I'm kind of being facetious. It's funny, it's humorous that the scientific community today dismisses, the mainstream science community dismisses things like magic when they use words like hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. Well, those are the four elements: water, earth, air, and fire. Those four elements have just changed in terminology. We still have water, earth, air, and fire. They're just hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. And some of them are sympathetic with each other, and some of them are not sympathetic with each other. And going back to the Cornelius Agrippa description of such things. So if you look at magic and if you look at mythology, which I think are interwoven, this was science, and it's still science to this day. But the scientific establishment of the material world has dismissed this kind of magic and understanding, I think, because anybody can do it. I don't need an electron microscope to do this. I don't need a doctorate degree in physics to do this. I don't need some theoretical concept of how the universe was formed. I'm not dismissing those types of things, but I don't need those things. I don't need to even spend money on this. I'll tell you what, over the years, guys, I have literally removed money more and more and more from my life. I've become so minimal that I don't really have to work to be able to sustain myself. I can make a few $100s on radio and work a part-time job here or there and support myself. Not because I'm better than anybody else, but because I realized none of the material stuff really matters. What matters to me is cooking a nice meal, reading a good book, now doing a radio show, hanging out with guys like you and talking. That's what really, really, truly matters. And when I recognize that, it's so empowering. Of course, any establishment, oppressive, tyrannical group of technocratic tyrants would not want the average person to recognize that, because then they lose control. And I think magic helps you to regain control.
Very well said. And Joe, you're champing at the bit here. I've seen you sitting up. Something must have piqued your interest there.
No. I'm actually in the chat room. I've taken Jimmy's duty tonight while he gets ready to say what he's got to say. But no, I certainly like the conversation, and it's something that needs to be discussed more so today than I think ever before, because they've dumbed us down to the way this stuff works so that they can utilize it, to their advantage. And that's exactly what's going on, And I'll cede it to you guys so you can, and I'll go back into the chat. But one thing I do want to say before I do is, folks, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and
join button, Joe. Join
the join button and gain access to the lovely emojis that Kev has made available to everybody, even the gay Alex Jones frog.
I mean, there's no other live stream in the world that offers you.
It's a fan favorite. Yeah,
it's definitely.
And then again, the super chat as well. If you want to support Kev and the Kev Baker Show, this is one of the reasons why I do it, is to help him. And, we're able to bring more to the table when Kev has your support. So anybody that can do that, please do. And I would certainly appreciate
that's one I owe you later, Joe. I owe you one for that one. Yes. No, folks, yes. Absolutely. But only there's one kind of stipulation here. Only if you can afford it first, because we'll still be here if not. And Jimmy, I know you wanted to jump in there because
blue chicken.
Yes, and Ryan has a blue chicken T-shirt.
It's a beautiful.
I know, that's a cool shirt.
What does it say? Tell us what it says. Blue rooster chickens
have a message for mankind, and then underneath of it says www.thesecretteachings.info. This is my contact in the desert shirt, one of them.
Or as we call it, Ryan, con in the desert.
Just a guy in the chat room. It's a Joe Joseph emoji. I don't know. I mean, I think that breaks computers if you put something.
Well, I've got Joe Joseph
in that limp penis one too.
Don't worry, we'll show Joe Joseph in his various kind of shapes and forms later, because we've got all the photoshops of him as Giorgio Tzoukalos and everything else. But Jimmy, over to you, dude. Well, first off, Jimmy, big shout out to Ron Hazlitt. Thank you, brother. Much appreciated.
Right on, Ron. Thank you.
On you go, Jimmy.
Yeah, so I wanted to throw a bone in the soup that Ryan was cooking over there because, you know, one of the things that I like to point out about rituals is something that I see as very suspect in my mind, and that is the crucifixion of Christ and the representation of that in Catholicism and the drinking of the blood and the eating of the flesh.
It's awful, isn't it?
It's bad.
Is awful. And literally the people that are, I want to point this out, is that if you're somebody, I mean, I was raised a Catholic as a boy, you know, Holy Communion and everything. So I used to be a Catholic, but I'm just saying, if you're a Catholic, they point at magic as something that's evil and of the devil.
Jimmy, just to be aware, there's
talk about plasma in skies.
okay. I've got a note of that. We'll talk about the plasma in the sky
Absolutely.
later on. Cupcake paper. Brilliant. Thank you. I've got a note of that right here on the paper.
Cool.
Plasma skies. On you go, Jimmy.
Yeah. So you see these figures at the head of these churches dressed in black. Okay. Black, from a magical standpoint, absorbs energy. It sucks energy in. And white puts energy out. Okay. So you see these figures dressed in all black, but they have a white little place right here at their throat mark. And that's because when they're making the sounds of the language they're speaking in and the tongues that they're using, there's something going on called the phonetic Kabbalah. And there's spells being cast, and by the speaking of these words out into the congregation, and then the congregation then responding with some sort of song or repeating some other phrase, what that's doing is it's generating this vortexual energy field that's going on. And based on the construction of these cathedrals that you see over where you are, Kev, the acoustics in there the energy reaches this point, and then that's when this,
that's because
ladder to the skies opens up.
I think, Ryan,
it's the stairway to heaven.
Yeah, I would say that's why people more so in the past. Jimmy, you're needing to turn your headphones down. That's it.
Yeah,
I would say, forgot what I was going to say now. Yeah, people used to say they almost had a religious experience after going to one of these like big chapels, big church events. And I think it was a lot to do with what Jimmy's talking about there. The acoustics, the way the building's shaped, the resonance that takes place, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's certainly energy in all of that. And I think some of it is imbued by prior events. Just like when you went to Crowley's house, right? Crowley's house.
Oh, look at that. 322 in the chat, another good number there.
Very good, yes. Well, Crowley's house is, it's not exactly, in a very, quote, special place, I guess you could say. But the things that he did there left an energy, a dark energy there that when you go, can make yourself susceptible to the things that are going on there. And that's exactly what happened to you, and I warned you. I warned you about that when you did it, because I've been down that road and I know where it takes you. And the problem when you get the attention of these little mischievous imps is that they're not necessarily attached to a place. They like to attach themselves to people, especially people that are light bearers or more positive or more good, however you want to call it. That's the way it is. And you actually end up getting a following. And it's not one of those followings you typically want, but it's a good gauge. It's a good gauge to figure out whether you're doing the right thing, whether you're on course, it's like Popeye always used to say, if you're getting flack, you know you're over the target.
Yeah.
So it's always one of those good little litmus tests, you know?
Well, what I'm showing here is the video of the day, the fateful day I went to Boleskine House. It's not actually, I'm trying to think.
Ballskin House. Let's say it right.
Yeah, this is the inside of it now, and if you watch this, right, I mean, this is one,
like the Kevin Baker version of Alex Jones going to Bohemian Grove.
it really is, because
Totally,
see if you
totally.
pause this here, you can see how it's all derelict, it's been burnt down, and then you see that doorway at the end, guys.
Yeah.
See, when you go through that doorway, everything is as if nothing's happened, and you come to learn.
It's called astral ass rape is what happened to
Yeah,
you.
on the right-hand side is a room, and it's a very dark room, but this is the room, Ryan, that Crowley chose to do the Abramelin magic experiment, or ritual, where he was calling up the 12 Dukes of Hell. I have never, and I can safely say, hand on heart, I have never been in a place that felt like that ever in my life, and I'll never want to be in a place that feels like that again. My partner, Anne, she seen one part of that bedroom we were going into, and no, she ran. That was enough for her. The bad luck that I took home with me, that my brother took with him, his friend took with him, it cannot be a coincidence that it happened all in the months following visiting that place. That place is alive, Ryan. It truly is. And this is magic of some sort.
It certainly is. In fact, the book I brought up earlier called The Magus, written by Francis Barrett in the early 1900s, at the end of the book where he's talking about things like human sacrifice, but in a metaphoric way, which I wanted to comment on as well, he's talking about how when you go to certain places, if you're going to attempt to summon the dead, if you want to summon the dead, you don't go to a king's palace. You don't go to the marketplace.
Yeah, right.
Those are places of gods like Jupiter. If you want to summon the dead, you go to a graveyard. You go to a church graveyard. You go somewhere that's dark, somewhere where there's that kind of energy and that feeling. You know, you could reverse it, because a lot of people might think, and I would have this perception too if I was listening, that this is just really negative and dark and evil and demonic. Well, okay, let's look at a sporting event. I don't know how many of you have ever been to a hockey game. That's my sport. I like hockey. And if you go to a hockey game, hockey more than any other sport that I've ever played or watched is just nonstop excitement and energy from the start to finish. A little bit different than football, a little bit different than basketball. And so it's nonstop energy. And it's not an energy where I'm thinking, oh, I got to get out of here. This is really depressing. It's an energy like goal, or, you know, what a hit. It's that kind of energy. It's a fun energy. It's competition. It's a little bit different than if you went to the place you went to, Kevin, you can feel kind of a darkness. It's like if you go somewhere where someone was murdered, or you've heard a story that, you know, in that building there were a bunch of people murdered. It's not just the idea of it. You can feel the energy.
I was just going to say, you could feel it, Brian. Absolutely right.
And, you know, just the boy that was there, that was, I'm not going to say his name because we'll probably get in trouble for being there, but Greg, big shout out to you. When they were there the first time, they had gone to investigate it, and they had heard a voice saying, "You will never leave here." And then if you see the picture I've got on the screen just now, guys, obviously, people that are into black magic, Aleister Crowley is like their hero. And they go to the property, and they obviously still try and, you know, do the Ouija board, stuff like that. And that's the base of a bed that you're looking at. And I've got a bit circled at the top. And it says, "I warned you not to play." Now, I thought to myself, yeah, whatever, when the guys were telling me about it. And then when I got to the house, they showed me it. But that's actually written from inside, underneath the fabric, like it's been scraped up the way, as opposed to, like, scraped down into it. And I checked that. There's no way you could physically do that kind of etching from the inside the way the bed was. It was totally solid, Ryan. There was no breaks in the fabric where you could get in and fix that up. And that's the room where we got stones thrown at us. We heard whispering. At one point, I thought my brother and his friend were winding me up. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, no, they're not winding me up. They're not even doing anything. And I'm hearing voices in my ears. That's just an example of what this place is like. Hang on.
Talk about natural witches that runs in families.
Ah, well then, we could definitely get into that cupcake.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so there's my look at Crowley's house. Jimmy, I know you want to bring up Crowley quickly as well, and then we'll get into what Cupcake said with the witches there.
For sure. No, I mean, I'm not necessarily stuck on Crowley, but what I am stuck on is what we've all been talking about today, which is energy. And when there's a working done, works, judge a man by his works. Okay, when there's a working done, depending on the strength of the working, there can be a resonant left behind. See, and like I was saying earlier, when you get cursed, it's not necessarily that somebody's got a, when we could talk about voodoo too if you want, but it's not that somebody's got a voodoo doll of you necessarily. All they have to really do is just you come in contact with that resonant energy of whatever went on at the workings of that at that house, that the energy affected you in such a way that wherever your life was weak, you had bad luck. Wherever something that wasn't righteous, like you weren't wherever your path wasn't righteous, there was a weakness, then you got bad luck there. It's like a ship. Like if you were a ship, Kev, magic is like magic is an energy that will find that place in your ship where it's weak, and there will be a hole that will pop in there.
Oh, it definitely identified the holes. That is for sure. And we've got 20 minutes left with Ryan, so we're going to make the most of them here. Cupcake was talking about...
Yeah, I was going to say, let's bring up the witch thing.
Yeah,
with Ryan.
Witches in the family, generational witches. Big stories over here, of course.
Stand by.
Yes, new subscriber. Thank you, Tracy. Over here, we've got like the Pendle Hill witches. We've had witch trials, stuff like that. And they do say it runs in the family. So what would you say, if you've researched that, Ryan? Is this a generational thing?
That's a really good question. I actually have a whole section in my book, Occult Arcana, about witchcraft. It's probably 20 pages or so. And I go into a little bit of the history of witchcraft and not really the Salem witch trials, but witchcraft throughout Europe and the history of witchcraft going back hundreds, if not thousands of years. The first question I would ask to counter that question, and I'm asking this more rhetorically, is what exactly is a witch? Because to a lot of people today, people think that if you put on really tight yoga pants and you put beads in your hair and you wear like pentagram necklaces, that you're a witch. And I don't know, maybe you are a witch. My point is there are a lot of people that just say they're light workers and that they're very witchy. That's kind of a thing that girls in particular call themselves, and others, they're very witchy.
Ryan, yoga pants are like a prerequisite to witchery now?
Yeah, it is. And if,
wow.
I did a show about what I saw at Contact in the Desert and some other conferences last year.
I like yoga pants.
If you get the yoga pants with the camel toe, that makes you a spiritual light healer. I've noticed that. But to be a little bit more serious, witchcraft, I'd have to really talk to the person in particular, unless they want to send us a message here, to see exactly what they mean by generational. Because what I can tell you about witchcraft from what I understand is that witches are not evil. Are there evil witches? Yeah, I'm sure that there are. But are all witches these horrible women who have communed with Satan? A lot of the things that I've read about witchcraft, there's an excellent book called The Mirror of Magic by Kurt Seligman. And he talked about witches in a way that was very unique. And when I started to look into what he was saying, and I combined it with my readings from other sources, you kind of get this view of witches as being persecuted for the same reasons that we were talking about earlier, because they were in some way, shape, or form more empowered, and they were disconnected from the status quo. At least that's how I viewed it from the books that I've read. But a lot of the horrible things that witches have been accused of are actually created, I think, by the very people who accuse them of performing horrible black masses and levitating, killing children. That's the creation of the people that accuse them of doing those things because they didn't understand, let's say, a gathering of people who came together and had a meal, and a lot of people in the community were scared of that, and so they created this allure about what was really taking place when that wasn't actually it. But that doesn't mean, by any means, that doesn't mean that we should dismiss things like we just saw there where Kev had went to the Crowley home, because that stuff is also real. And there are women just as much as there are men that participate in that.
Sure.
But we also have to then pause, take a moment and look at like the Ouija board, for example, in that video. I don't think the Ouija board is an evil thing. I actually have one of the original Ouija boards. My friend Karen Dahlman, some of you might know her. She sent that to me, one of the original Ouija boards from the 1970s. And I don't think that's a negative thing. I've only had positive experiences. So my point is, to sum up, nothing, whether it's a swastika, a pentagram, or a Ouija board, is evil unless you use it.
They're tools in the toolbox, if you will, Ryan. You know, let me say this too in response to Cupcake's question, because in my family, I've actually seen evidence of this, and that's the generational, basically passing down the ability. I see it more from like a psychic perspective. My wife is extreme. She's got like this. She's like the spiritual express lane. She's a lightning rod, and things tend to find her, and also her connection to that realm is extremely strong. It was passed on to my daughter. She also has that same gift, if you will, but my youngest daughter doesn't. You know, it didn't pass on to her. What I came to find out is that when I looked back at the generations on my wife's side, the oldest daughter in each generation got that gift. The others did not. It's really bizarre.
That really is.
How it turned out.
That really is weird. And I've seen somebody in the chat room saying they would sleep in Crowley's house, no problem. Even up to the point where I went into Crowley's house that day, I would have agreed with you. Not anymore. But Jimmy,
got inside.
Once you got inside, Ryan, it was a vortex. It truly was. That's all I can explain it as now. But Jimmy, I know you're going to take us into the witches as well, man. You live in a place where there's covens, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I mean, the Santa Cruz Mountains is a pretty intense and powerful place. There's a lot of witchcraft that goes on here. There's many covens. There's a very strong lesbian community here. There's a super strong feminine force here. And, one of the things about, the witches that I particularly find interesting is this myth about the broom and the riding of the broom. Because if you think about the broom in the sense that you're, when you think about energy and you think about sexual energy, there's really a seriously powerful magic called sex magic. And there's a certain energy that's generated by this particular working. And when you think about the broom, for example, if somebody was in yoga pants, Brian, and they did have that camel toe, and they started dancing around a fire, and there was like, say, I don't know, 9 people or 6 people together, and they were all dancing around the fire, rubbing that broom up against their clitoris, okay, generating sexual energy. That's what riding the broom's all about. Is that
what the sound? Is that the sound it makes when you do that?
It is.
I must be doing it wrong. I've never heard it sounding like that.
Me neither, but
no wonder Anne's fed up with me.
I would, to a degree, I would disagree about the sexual energy. I understand what you're saying, but the only thing I disagree on is that when it comes to sexual energy, I think of Crowley, and I think of a lot of people that like Crowley a lot, and I think of all the things that personally I've been through in having friends who liked Crowley and thinking that since I'm interested in magic, I must love Crowley too. And I tell them, no. Right. I don't like Crowley. I don't like anything that Crowley is about. Let me give you a quick example. Sex, meat, alcohol, and drugs. Those were things that were abstained from in the early initiations into the mystery schools in places like Greece and Egypt, right? You abstain from sex, not only sex, but you abstain from social contact in a lot of cases from other human beings. You went into solitude. You wrote, you meditated, you studied. You abstain from meat. You abstain from alcohol. You abstain from drugs. Today, all of that has been inverted. All of that has been perverted. When you go to places like I've been at certain conferences, I'm sure that some of you have been to conferences. You see this a little bit. This is where I kind of recognized it first and foremost. And by no means am I criticizing sex or meat or alcohol or drugs. But what I'm saying is abstinence from these things was considered a prerequisite for getting initiated, to simplify things, into the mystery schools. You didn't get initiated into the mystery schools by having orgies, by consuming flesh, by drinking excessive amounts of alcohol and getting drunk, and by doing any drug that you can inject, snort, or that you can swallow. Those were things, again, that you abstain from. So if you look at some of the people that believe that, again, I'm not dismissing witches either, but believe that they're witches or that they're very powerful, they might very well be. But to think that having an orgy while you're inebriated and on a bunch of different drugs and you drank a bunch of alcohol, maybe meat is not involved here, but to think that that's going to enlighten you, that'll do the very opposite. Because I think if we go back to the cross we were talking about earlier, we talk about man being crucified to the cross like Jesus. Man is crucified to the cross esoterically. The cross is materiality, the four corners, the four quadrants. So man is crucified, the soul is crucified to the cross of materiality by the nails of illusion. And when the nails fall, man comes off the cross. Brilliant. And so when we talk about things like the animal sacrifice, the human sacrifice, of course, are these things real? Sure, there really are black Sabbaths. There really are people that get together and they sacrifice animals, they sacrifice human beings.
I've been told I'm a starseed. Had random people approach me abroad saying they know and I'm an old soul. Instant connection. Any theories on this?
Wow. Right. Let me hold that thought. Bison, I'll hold that thought. I've got it here. And then, Ryan, you finish your thought off there and then we'll get into that. And I remember and watch the time, Ryan, because I don't want you to be too late for where you're going, dude.
Sure. I appreciate it, Kev. I can make a comment on that. I think all of us are old souls.
Yeah.
But anyway, animal and human sacrifices. The animal and the human sacrifice is something that is very interesting to have a look at if you think about it. I look at something like The Wizard of Oz, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, Frank Baum. Frank Baum was a theosophist. Frank Baum wrote The Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion. And what are the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion? The Scarecrow is the vegetable body, the Tin Man is the mineral body, and the lion is the animal body. And so if you are to sacrifice your animalistic instincts, such as sex, reproduction, entertainment, and pleasure like alcohol and drugs and things of that nature, then you are to perform an animal sacrifice. Same thing with the human sacrifice. When you sacrifice the parts of yourself that make you human in the most materialistic sense, including those things like meat and alcohol and drugs, very, very material, low vibrational things, then you've performed a human sacrifice. And I think the beautiful thing about all of this, you guys brought up Harry Potter. And in the first Harry Potter recognizes that he has the Philosopher's Stone the entire time. But until he could recognize that, he was in search of it. And in part of that search, he fell into the devil's snare. And the devil's snare is vines and tentacles, kind of like Slender Man, right? And in order to get out of the devil's snare, Hermione casts a spell, and she lights up the room. And through the illumination of the darkness, and through Harry and I think Ron were both there entangled, they had to stop fighting. And when they stopped fighting against the binding, then the binding, like the nails of illusion, let loose and let them go. And when he did that, when the light illuminated the room and Harry and Ron stopped struggling and they were let go, Harry found that the entire time he was really in control. He really had the power. He had the Philosopher's Stone on him. He didn't have to go out in search of it. He didn't have to go take it from somebody else. He had it. And that's really at the core of things like alchemy. You recognize that when you have the ability to, say, turn something else into gold, you don't have the need for that kind of wealth. It's a spiritual understanding, an understanding that separates you because you perform that animal human sacrifice. It separates you from the cross of materiality. And you're placed into the tomb for 3 days, and then you're resurrected, a son of God.
And knowing about the Philosopher's Stone, without the experience that you've gained through life to recognize it, is what everybody goes through. These are we have, Ryan, you are really a brilliant person, and I'm so happy to have met you and been able to have a really great conversation tonight. I look forward to hoping that you're going to be coming back to visit us again soon, because I know you're going to go soon.
We'll see you at Contact too, I'm guessing, right?
You will, for sure. I'm working on it right now. I'm going to try to work it out where I'm doing a live broadcast. So I might have a couch set up off to the side, and I may ask specific people to come on over. And so I will definitely be looking for that shirt that you're wearing right now.
Definitely. Well, Ryan, if you've got anything that you want to pass on to the audience about what we've been talking tonight, let people know where they can, the blue chickens, let people know where they can hear your show as well, because I've become a bit of an addict to that. And of course, we had a brilliant hangout with Clyde Lewis just last week.
Yeah, we did, Kev. Well, my website to start is www.thesecretteachings.info. It's .info. The email that I have is rdgable@yahoo.com, and you can message me directly. I don't have anybody that goes through my stuff. I run everything, so rdgable@yahoo.com. On my website, you'll find my books. You'll find subscriptions to the Secret Teachings archive. I also have a free archive, and I have a couple dozen shows in there, including the show that Kev and Clyde and I did a couple of weeks ago. That's free. You can download it, and you can stream it for free on the website. My show airs 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday, same time, 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific, and that is 3 a.m. U.S. Eastern time, I believe, on the Fringe FM. The website for the Fringe FM is thefringe.fm. And what I try to do every week is I try to select a theme, create a little promo picture for that theme, and from the very beginning of my show, I've been doing things very, very similar, though I didn't know who it was, to Clyde Lewis, where I have a theme and I play on that theme through the show, and I do something that I try to make very unique from all the other radio shows and from all the other things that you could possibly tune in and listen to, and I try to be as objective as possible, and I try to look at things from a critically thought-out perspective rather than succumbing to, I'm on the left, I'm on the right, and I have to defend or I have to attack another one. I'm not a religious person. I'm not an atheist. I'm not a political person, but I'm not an anarchist. That's what I tell people. I just try to connect the dots between seemingly unconnected people, places, and events. And then I think the world that we all live in that seems so complex starts to make a little bit more sense. Kev,
absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, I can't work enough with you, honestly. And looking at the chat room, you have got a lot of listeners out there who absolutely love your stuff, and understandably so as well. And people in the chat room, don't panic. Ryan's going to be leaving us. We'll get him back sometime very soon. But myself, Joe, and Jimmy, we've got a couple of stories we need to shoot about as well.
Yeah, we're still going to be cracking for a little while.
And Ryan, absolutely made up you actually managed to make it tonight. Doubly made up you got the camera as well. So this has been brilliant, man. Yeah. Brilliant, dude. This is the way forward, man.
We'll have to do this again really soon with the camera. And even when we do your show, the Kev Baker show during the week, we'll do the camera.
Yeah, I try to insist to guests now that we need the camera, but you're one of the people that always got a pass. It was never a biggie because your information carried it through, dude. So all good, man.
I really dig the cover of your book, too, and I like the way your website looks. I really like the way it looks. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go over there if you haven't been there before and check out what Ryan's got going on.
Yeah, this artwork here is by Allie Hartley. You can find her stuff on the website as well, www.thesecretteachings.info. So Occult Arcana, that's the book, The Secret Teachings. Kev, again, thank you. Joe, Jimmy. I'll talk to you guys later, all right?
Awesome, Ryan. Yeah, you have a nice remainder of your weekend, and we'll speak again soon, man.
All right, sounds good.
Catch you later, bro.
Thanks again. Great talk.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Now, the cameras are going to go all to hell here, right? So, Joe, you can talk just now, and I'll reshape the cameras, all right?
Okay, so let's go to, before we get to...
Can we deal with the bison star seed thing?
Sure.
Because I've heard star seed so many times, and how ignorant, because I didn't even know what a star seed was. But the definition here, the definition is it may refer to star people, which is a New Age belief, and it's individuals who believe they originated from another world, another dimension, or another planet. Star seeds, space-traveling creatures used by outsiders to plant life on planets in Larry Niven's known space science fiction series. Now, people from other dimensions, other planets, other worlds. I think that there's 7.5 billion of us on the planet right now, and I think we all chose to be here. Now, that sounds a bit weird, but we're living through some really magical, mysterious, and fantastic times. The apocalypse is upon us, and Joe, it feels like we're all here at this time to be a part of it.
I'll tell you, it sounds eerily familiar to the story of the Nephilim and how, they were the Watchers, interdimensional beings that came down and were like, yo, man, these women look fly and whatnot. Let's go ahead and procreate with them. And then, they spawned the giants and things like that. And again, I often find that as whether it's esoteric, whether it's New Age, whether it's Christianity, whether it's again, you see these parallels in the ancient teachings of all of this stuff, where the stories are a little bit different, but they're the same, if you will. So if that's the case, and that's what they're referring to by starseed, then I would say that probably happened, and it did. And again, to say that doesn't still happen, that there aren't people here, or ones that are perhaps even, we know possession's real, right? So we know that there are interdimensional beings or these spirits that are able to inhabit those that make themselves vulnerable. So we know that, I don't know. I certainly think there's some validity to it, no doubt.
No, I think there is as well. I really do. It's interesting that people come up to Bison and tell him that. I mean, it's one thing somebody claiming it, Joe, but for other people to recognize it in somebody, that's quite strange.
Yeah, it's also quite strange what you're doing.
I know, man. I know. I'm trying to get you all reshaped up. Don't you worry about that. I'll get it done, dude. Don't you worry about that. Don't worry.
Man in the hat and man in the chat over there on top of that screen.
Now, I know we've got lots of other stuff to get into.
Yeah.
Or at least you have, Joe. I know you've got like some stuff you want to rant on. Like Jesse Smollett.
Well, where
do we start? Where do you want to start?
We're talking about Starseed. Huffington Post the other day.
I wanted to jump in on some Starseed activity.
All right, go ahead. Jump in.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. I thought you were done.
No, by all means, get it out.
Are you sure?
Yes, do it.
I'm serious.
Well, I was just going to say, when I was at Contact in the Desert, I had come in contact with a bunch of other people that were sort of, other people that were RH negative people, people with blue eyes and, certain kind of look to them, but what was interesting about it was that there was just this resonance.
Agree, we all agreed to be here at this time and place for a reason.
Yeah, I think that. Absolutely. Totally agree with you, Mermaid Moxie. We're all here, right time, right place for this reason. So, Jimmy, Starseeds.
I like that. That's cool.
Yep.
We
finish your thought on the Starseeds, dude, and then we'll get to the...
Yeah, I'm sorry. So, but I mean, I think there is a Starseed type community. I just don't, it's called Starseed or whatever, and there's this concept about it. But I think it goes a little deeper. I think it's into the DNA structures like we've been talking about when we played the music of the DNA. I think there's some sort of resonance that happens between people. So in other words, the person that came up to Bison and said, "Are you a starseed?" Maybe they think they're a starseed, and they thought they recognized somebody.
Definitely
Yeah.
seems like that, doesn't it, Joe?
Well,
Definitely.
if there's any doubt to it, HuffPost did an article a little while back, and I dug it back up because I thought it was relevant to the whole Starseed thing. Former manager of DoD Aerospace Threat Program says UFOs are real. So you have like this validation, if you will, because oftentimes people require validation from the same organizations that they say are bullshitting them from time to time. So here's one. It says something extraordinary was revealed today. Former high-level officials and scientists with deep black experience who have,
You're going to go Luis Elizondo on me, ain't you?
I am, who have always remained in the shadows, came forward on one platform. These insiders have long-standing connections to government agencies, which may have programs investigating unidentified phenomenon. The team includes a 25-year veteran of the CIA's Directorate of Operations, a Lockheed Martin program director for advanced systems at Skunk Works, and a former deputy assistant secretary of defense for intelligence. It was the place. The actual event was called To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, an innovative public benefit corporation which will advance research into unexplained phenomenon and develop related technology. It has established three synergistic divisions: science, aerospace, and entertainment. This is what they say, quote, "We believe there are discoveries within our reach that will revolutionize the human experience." This is Tom DeLonge, CEO of this beautiful new company, if you will. And basically what they're saying is that they've all had collective experience operating under the shadows of top secrecy for decades. And they believe that there is sufficient credible evidence that proves exotic technologies not only exist, but could also revolutionize the human experience, which, of course, we know is a fact because a lot of these technological leaps are due to the reverse engineering of some of this technology. We also know that through the work of people like your buddy Jordy, who have openly admitted, yeah, we get these additional resources that, you know, through the veil, if you will, with this quantum computers that provide us that information, and then we go ahead and we put it to use. So it is most certainly, I think, valid and credible when people bring that up, you know, the starseed thing and everything else. I think there's certainly validity to it. There's no doubt.
Big time. However, I have to take you to task with this To the Stars Academy, dude. I've had a look at these guys, and I can't figure out whether Tom DeLonge is a willing participant or if they targeted him as a useful idiot, as
Probably
they say
so.
in intelligence circles. And I've got the team up here. No problem with the team, with Tom DeLonge, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, he's always been outspoken on UFOs, things like that. But then you
Sure.
start to look at the board, Joe, and there's big worries here because
Okay.
you've got Jim Semivan, and he's after his retirement as a senior intelligence service member of the
Which,
CIA.
by the way, they never retire. They
Exactly.
never
There's
retire.
no former CIA. You're always one phone call away from being activated, right? So you've got him. You've got Dr. Hal Puthoff. Now, Dr. Hal Puthoff, he worked on things like...
Is that like a... Is that his real name? You got to wonder.
Dude, this guy worked on MK Ultra.
Yeah. Oh.
Right. Now, it says here, Dr. Puthoff has served as the president of the CEO of Earth Tech International and director of the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin. He has published numerous papers. But you look into his background, Aaron and Melissa. Oh,
Talk black goo and about Joe's nipple.
Black Goo and Joe's nipple? Aren't they one and the same?
It messed it up. It's Joe's nipple tassels.
Right, we'll get the nipple tassels in a minute, but that
I don't
doesn't stop here.
I don't do tassels. I do the Hershey
Doesn't
kisses.
stop here, right? Because you keep coming down, Joe, right? You've got this guy. I've not looked into him, but then Luis Elizondo, you mentioned him. He comes from where's the music coming from?
There be no music here.
It's
Kev.
okay, it's okay. It's okay. I figured it out.
Music.
Figured
I
it
wish
out.
I could hear
This
some
guy,
music.
Chris Mellon. Christopher Mellon is a private equity investor, political commentator, and the chair of the science committee at the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. Now, he served as 20 years in federal government, including as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in the Clinton and Bush administrations. Worked on Capitol Hill. Dude, the whole To the Stars Academy reads like something out of the world of Black Ops. Truly does. They came onto the scene late in 2016. They gave us the Flying Tic Tac, a whole heap of really cool footage. I'm not denying the fact that they released some really good information. However, I think it's a controlled release of information. I think they've hitched their wagon to Tom DeLonge because he's a good public face to put on things. Jimmy, you need to sit back from your microphone because it gives us feedback, dude. It's coming through your... That's us now. That's us now. It's away now. See? It's away now. See? It's gone. You'll not hear it, dude. So it's your feedback. So I'm really worried about this crowd, Joe. I don't like them. I keep on the fence with them, to be honest with you. But it's good to see some kind of official word coming out. I get that. But there's something wrong with this crew.
Oh, yeah.
Something wrong.
Certainly shady, ain't no doubt.
Yeah.
But I found it very interesting that at least there's some,
Well, what about this then?
I don't
How
even
about
call
this
it
one?
validity because it's shit. But
they've got rid of the guy. They used to have a guy that worked on genetic modification, microchipping people. They've got rid of him, and they've got in this new girl now, Dr. Adele Gilpin. I can't comment on her because I've never looked into her before. But I think the general consensus is, you've got the blue chickens, which is the really outrageous kind of side of the SSP, and then on a more kind of official kind of narrative, you've got this mob. And I don't think they're anything to be trusted. Yeah, we can look at their stuff, but not to be trusted, dude.
right. Absolutely. You know who can be trusted?
Who can we trust?
And I want to go to the UK for this one real quick. This is something that I found very nice. And again, this goes to show you how much humans truly do care for each other and farm animals. And I thought you'd like this too. So I'm going to go to a very, very reputable source, much more reputable than those gentlemen there, the Metro, where it was reported today that a missing goat was found 25 miles away catching a tram to Manchester. That's right. A goat, my friends, Belle, her name was, a pygmy goat, was reported earlier this week, but she was just discovered at a tram station waiting behind the yellow line with other commuters. Now, it's not clear exactly how she came to be there, or if we've underestimated goats this whole time.
Come on, dude.
Fellow passengers were mostly just ignoring the goat and using their phones. Owner, Julie Swindle, 49, said Belle went missing from her farm in Greenfield, Settleworth on Monday. She thought she was stolen. Turns out, 25 miles away.
Guys, they used to have a guy that worked on public face to put on genetic modification. Jimmy, you need to sit back.
Jimmy, you're back, yeah. Yeah, you're bleeding through, Jimmy.
I don't know what that was. That was like the show
either.
playing. That was weird. I don't even know if that was Jimmy. That was weird.
But she said that there's definitely a way that there's no way that she could have got 25 miles on her own. But is there? Are we not giving goats enough credit?
Am I meant to take this seriously, Joe?
Jimmy, I must ask you, is there a secret intelligence that goats possess that we are being bamboozled about, if you will?
That's why like the dark occultists and the Satanists and things, they hold the goats in such high esteem, Joe.
In high esteem, yeah. You got to wonder why Bale's a goat. Got the goat head, right? Goat hoofs.
Come on,
why?
Come on, Jimmy. Educate us on your goat knowledge. And he's muted up. He's muted up. I don't believe it.
Okay, this time for real.
Yeah, hold on. I don't know much about goats, but I do see them represented quite a bit. The little horny little devils, I see the goat is sort of like half man, half goat. Is sort of the
there's always a goat component.
Yeah,
isn't it Pan character, like half man, half goat? He plays the flute, right?
Yeah,
It's got the little horn sticking out on top.
totally.
But the goat, overall, I think if you go to Greece, the goat is something that you really enjoy because they know how to cook a goat over there, don't they, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you look at like goat milk is as close to humans as, and they always say that you should drink goat milk, not cow milk, if you're going to drink any sort of animal milk.
Well, hold on. Now that you say that, that's kind of making me think the myth of the half man, half goat might not be too far off. Maybe there was a little hanky-panky going on the
Well,
farm.
first of all, Jimmy, you should never be drinking the man milk.
No, definitely not. That's
just
not
remember
good.
that. You get it? No, that's not it.
But what is it, right? Because, Joe, I don't know, over in the US military, do you have animals as like mascots and things like that in your regiments? No.
Not so much anymore.
Only reason I ask is because over here we had a regimental goat.
Did you really?
The goat got treated better than any of the soldiers. The goat was put on a pedestal, dude. And I found it strange at the time, but I wasn't into all of this stuff, and it really was just a goat. Didn't think twice about it. But then you look at war, you look at that kind of thing, and then you've got a goat as your like mascot representing the unit. It's a bit worrying, dude.
Yeah, no, we never got into all that shit. The mascot stuff. There's like logistical problems when you have like a dog out to sea or something like that. You hit seas, you know, they typically they don't know how to handle the rocking and rolling. So we never really got into that. That's more of like your ground pounders and
like real military. Like real
military. Yeah, we were just a taxi service.
Exactly, dude. Just
that's how we roll.
Deliver missiles by proxy and things.
My dog loved my sailboat. He never wanted to leave it. He was upset when we had to go because he just loved everything about it, man.
Oh, there's some dogs, man. There's some dogs that love the water, that love to be out there. I had a chocolate lab. When she was a puppy, I first brought her home. We had a pool.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And she immediately jumped in the pool. I freaked out. I was like, holy crap, dude. She's dumb as a box of rocks. She went and jumped in the damn pool. No.
Chocolate, the personality of a lab is kind of like the personality of somebody you'd really want to have as a friend. You know, they're just so exuberant. You know, they're just happy-go-lucky. They'll just do whatever to have a good time. You know, jump right in the water, go chase a ball for you, huh, Joe?
No, yeah, you're right there.
That. And actually, those chocolate labs, they have web feet. You know, so they can swim.
They could go underwater too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They did all. She freaked me out. Like I said, the first time she did that, I was like, oh no, she's gonna drown. I dove in after her and stuff. No, she was having a good old time, man. And that was as a pup. Never showed her it. Never walked her up to it. She did it of her own free will, almost instinctually, just. And then I couldn't keep her out of it. She's in it all the time, you know. So it's kind of crazy.
I have a chow, and you know, the way that these dogs in ancient China, the reason they got the name chow is because when the ships used to go to China and they'd load them up with everything, anything that was in the hold was called chow chow when it came from China. And so they brought these dogs over, but these dogs over in China, they were used there. I mean, when you see these things called foo dogs, those are chow chows that are all braided up because they used these dogs to hunt bear and to guard the palaces and stuff. Genghis Khan used to send in a whole pack of these chow chows with all this leather on the back of them, you know, and studs and all this into the towns to just rip people to shreds.
Your dog should not be a pet, dude. That's like a fighting dog, man. There's them. You know, you get like pit bulls, you get staffies. Some dogs are just fighting dogs, Joe.
Johnny King, he had now this over the years they've kind of passed away a little bit. I think he's got 2 left, but he had like 4 or 5 chows. He had like a whole. He knows how great a dogs they are. Yeah, man. I had Nikita, which is very, very similar in temperament and intelligence to a chow. Yeah. Same, even had the blue tongue and the curly tail and stuff. But and he was the best dog I ever had. hands down, the most intelligent dog, most capable dog, the most loyal dog that I ever had was Murph, the Akita, and the behavioral characteristics and traits of an Akita and a Chow are almost identical. The only difference is size. The Akitas are a lot bigger.
But Akitas are great dogs, man. And you know what you're saying about it is interesting because, you know, these dogs, these breeds, the Akita and the Chow, they're like they're quiet unless there's some reason to. In other words, they'll make a noise or whatever if something needs. But if something's there and you need to know about it, they'll bark. But until then, they don't make a peep.
It's so funny. Friends of mine would always make fun of his quirks. One of them was if I took him for a walk, right? And he had to drop a deuce. Yeah. He had to be surrounded by 3 sides.
Yeah, my dog does the same thing.
What is that all about?
He has to have privacy. If he doesn't have privacy, he gets stage fright and he can't do it.
Exactly.
What is that all about? I don't know if this is just an attempt. I don't know if this is just an attempt by Joe to stop us talking about his nipple tassels or his third nipple that I heard he's got. Angela told me he's got a third nipple and 6 toes. What's going on, dude?
Star Trek, yeah.
When I go on the road with my dog, like if I go on a road trip with my dog, he will not drop a deuce until he gets in the perfect spot. It doesn't matter. I could walk him 1,000 times. He will not do it.
So we've had camel toe tonight, which I think is absolutely legendary. Camel toe, Ryan, absolute legend for dropping that on the show. We've had dogs taking a shit. And now we're going to trigger Joe. Because, Joe, there's a story you've been holding on to all week, dude. You must have passed this to me maybe last week and you said, Kev, keep this for the stream. I want to unload on this. So who is Joe going to give both barrels to tonight? Well, Jesse Smollett. Step on up, son. What's happening, Joe?
Yes. I got to get some sound effect for this, man.
Oh, my. Jussie Smollett, the asshat in chief, the... You want to talk about what's wrong with society? Look at this asshole. And then to make matters worse, look at the media and how, first of all, they grasp his story. Now, remember when it came out, Kev, you and I, we talked about it on the air. And I said, this is bullshit. Not because he's black, not because he's gay, not because of all that shit, but because with the wind chill, it was minus 65 degrees when this happened, and people aren't out lurking in the effing cold waiting for the perfect target to strike to throw a noose on them and to spray shit on them. Again, minus 65 degrees. So if they're waiting for any significant length of time out there, chances are their squirt gun or liquid's going to start to freeze. This whole story was bullshit from the beginning. And so we called it out. And then what? Like a week later? Oh, it's bullshit. Well, you know, here, let me just give you a little bit of this. Jussie Smollett case. This is TMZ, another reputable source. Crushed it way more than just his gig on Empire. Yeah, no shit. Not to mention the fact, asshole, look at what you did to all of your co-workers on Empire, which, by the way, is a real shitty show. I can't believe it's in its 6th season, but whatever. It totally and completely, not only, this is a great example of what happens when you do things for yourself to better your position. What a great example of the boomerang effect of, I just went and perpetrated this lie, if you will, and now look. Now they're probably going to cancel Empire. Everybody that's on it is going to lose their job because of this asshole. I hope I hope he gets jail time, a palooza, and he becomes a.
Thank you, JWD. Yeah, JW. Yeah.
Hey, this dude is such. I mean, this guy is so far. This guy is so far away from the street. Okay.
So far away from the street. Yeah.
for being a black man or whatever that he paid these fools with a check, man. No, I swear to God, these are a couple of African dudes, like a couple of those skinny West African dudes.
They were part of the show. I mean, as far as like they had some sort of support role or whatever, and that's where he met them.
Do we think it's all him? Do we think it's all him? Because we know that he's like bum buddies with Obama and things like that.
That doesn't matter. He's a fucking asshole.
Yeah, man.
That's what he is. You know.
Am I giving him too much credit to think that this was a bigger?
You're way giving him too much credit.
That's cool.
He didn't like the fact that he wasn't making as much money as some of his co-workers, and he wanted to better his position. So what better way to do it? Remember, PR, whether good or bad, is PR. And he was
the golden boy for a minute, though, because he tried to create with this was a promotional moment for himself.
Right.
And what he was doing was placating to a certain segment. Okay.
Right. Coffee.
Until they found out that shit was fake. They were running with that story, man. Oh my God.
Why?
They sprayed him with
narrative.
bleach,
He knew.
Joe. They were gonna bleach him white. He had to be white, Joe. Gotta be white.
See, I hate that shit. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And I hate the fact that the mainstream media just goes ahead and picks and chooses and manipulates stories to fit the narrative that they're trying to push. It's no different than government. And when it all boils down to it, what is it? It's propaganda. It's propaganda, you know. But also be of good cheer, folks, because most people out there, don't buy into it. And the ones that you see that are highlighted on media that get any sort of FaceTime on social media, because just like media, social media does the same thing. They censor things that don't fit the narrative, and they promote things that do fit the narrative. And because of that, you get this idea that these concepts, that these people out there are more numerous than they actually are. And really, they're a very small minority, an extremely small minority. It's the same thing as Muslim terrorists and things like that. A lot of people say, the Muslims, they're all over the place, they're bad. No, it's a very small vocal minority that do these things to get the attention. And then the mainstream media says, ooh, well, this fits narrative number 83. So we're gonna go ahead and promote it. And that's what they do. You have to break free of that shit. So this asshole is nothing but an asshole. And he's going to get what assholes deserve, which is jail time. And he should. He should get jail time for what he did. He wasted resources that could have been put to use somewhere else. You know, you had first responders show up, all that. You don't know what. Somebody could have died because that freaking ambulance had to respond to him instead of a heart attack or a stroke or something like that. See, there's a bunch of shit that people like him don't freaking think about. And it ends up, it has bad repercussions. You know, that's why you don't want to do things that are self-centered or narcissistic in nature, because when you do, the cause and effect thing is bad. And what comes back at you is bad. He's kicking himself in the ass now, but he hasn't felt, he's got like a sliver of the repercussions that are coming his way. Is
he gonna do time, do you think?
I fucking hope so.
Yeah.
I hope
he deserves to, man.
And Fed pound me in the ass prison too. I hope it's there.
To me, it's like crying rape. You know, if you cry that kind of thing and you get caught, you know, you're setting up, you should get the exact same punishment as that person that you accused of something they didn't do. I really do believe that.
Natalie Remington in the chat room says he'll get probation. You know what, Natalie? Probably. You're probably right. He'll probably get flipping. It'll be, well, yeah, she's a first-time offender and everything else. Never mind the fact that he's just been charged with 16 fucking felonies.
They shape, they shape the dialogue with the stories. They cherry pick these stories, or they cherry pick a story and only a piece of the story that they use over and over again to beat you into a path, some way of thinking about a certain subject matter. So like you're showing, so from a demographic perspective, in the overall population of the United States, out of that population, there's a segment of the population that's white, there's a segment of the population that's black, there's a segment of the population that's Latin, there's a segment of the population that's Asian, so on and so forth. Okay, so in relation to, if you were in a room full of people, okay, the odds of there being way more white people in the room than there is brown people, just in demographic, you wouldn't necessarily see 10 black people in one room and only a few white people, or one white person and 4 black people, 2 Asian people, and 2 Mexican people. It just demographically, from a population standpoint.
Guys, your country is batshit crazy right now. I mean, America's always had a kind of level of batshit craziness to it, but since Trump took office, and none of us here like any politicians. We don't like left or right. We see them as two cheeks of the same asshole, right? We hated on Obama, we hated on Bush, we hate on Trump. But what has he done? I mean, is it just the media that sparked all of this? Because for me, America looks different than it ever has before.
Because the American people chose to elect a reality TV show actor, and it's in turn turned the White House into a reality TV show.
Not only that, they got brown people and black people hating white people, thinking that we're all over here plotting together, for something or whatever. When the reality of the situation is, all of us, every single one of us as a race across America right now is in trouble, man. There's a bunch of stuff going on here. There's a lot of unrest. And they're directing, just like we were talking about when Ryan was here. We're talking about energy. We're talking about attention and intention.
Yeah, they're choosing to have us focus on that bullshit instead of the important stuff, instead of the problems.
Thank you. And we're also focusing this whirlwind of the blackest of hates, man.
Yeah.
And these energies are, things are going to come to a head.
Yeah.
Okay, but the thing is they focus the energy on the intended victim, whoever that victim is. All these groups are hating on white people for right now. Like maybe there are some bad white people. I'm sure there are. Just like
absolutely.
Maybe there's some. There's bad people in every group.
Exactly, they come in all shapes and colors, Jimmy. All religions, everything. You'll always find bad people.
And they cherry pick the bad person and use it to demonize the rest of the group. In other words, maybe there's some evil Mason somewhere. Okay, that doesn't mean the brother down the street's an evil Mason. Okay, there's nothing, it's just like whatever group you may be a part of, if you're in the alternative media, they use different rag dolls or whatever to get people all, inflamed.
Well, just a guy, that's a good point. He says it's regime change used around the world, now being deployed at home.
Yeah. No, it's always been here. Leaders are selected, they're not elected. That's the biggest thing that you have to come to grips with. That's why, I don't participate in the selection process. Never have, never will. Because nobody, lives up to my expectations or the values and virtues I would hope to instill. Typically, men and women of honor avoid Mordor on the Potomac like a fucking plague, because that place will ruin people and snuff their light out faster than you know what. And so you're not going to ever find somebody that's going to come in and right the ship. It's just not going to happen. It's pie in the sky thinking.
The last time that I even wanted to get involved in anything was when the Ron Paul revolution was happening.
And look what happened to him.
I know. It was, but you know what? If you look back, Joe, back at Barry Goldwater.
Same thing.
Exactly. He led people out in the desert They were all cheering for him, and he just walked away and left everybody out in the desert. And then here comes this Rand Paul guy. He comes up, right from the beginning. You could tell this guy's a neocon, right? Yep. But Alex Jones like legitimized him a bunch, like made him see, Rand Paul this, blah, blah, blah. But look at him. I mean, he's nothing like his father is. I mean,
no, he's not. He's not.
Yeah.
I refuse to hate anyone. That is probably the best thing that you can do to combat is you just don't hate. Hate is such, and believe me, they're using that term hate on purpose for a reason. Whenever you see hate speech, hate this, hate that, they're using it and weaponizing that term. But we should never, I mean, hate is it's an emotion that you should use very, 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 you make sure you put a lot of thought into it before you use that feeling or trigger that emotion.
Does it come back, Joe, to bite you in the ass?
It does. It does. Not to mention the fact, since we were talking about energies and frequencies and things like that, it puts it out there. People feel it. They feed off it, whether they're next to you or not. The powers that shouldn't be, those that do these rituals, they feed off of hate and darkness. So you have to change that.
Jimbo?
You have to not do that. You're giving them food.
Jimbo, don't feed them.
Yeah, it's like don't feed the animals at the zoo, right, Jimmy?
It is. Hey, I used to live right on Venice Beach down in Southern California. And I used to spend a lot of time out there, go out, drink my coffee, sit there with my sunglasses on or whatever and watch people go by. I like to watch people, see what's going on, this and that. And something that I noticed this a long time ago. And of course it propelled me into learning about a whole bunch of other things because I noticed it. But I noticed one day I was in a really, really pissed off mood. Okay. And I was sitting there and there was these girls, these ladies that used to play these harps on the boardwalk. It was like, they wore like white gowns and stuff, and they looked like angels, and I think they were called the Angels of the Boardwalk or something like that. Anyways, they're playing harp music, and I was all pissed off, and I was sitting there listening to the music, trying to mellow out. And all of a sudden, here comes this dude over there, like he's got his shirt off or whatever, and he's like strutting around and all this, and you could tell that he was just waiting for somebody to say something to him, man. He's just waiting for somebody. And he comes and sits right down right next to me, man. And it was in that moment, based on that dude, I never saw him again. It doesn't even matter if he even existed, because I learned a lesson in that moment, which was I attracted to myself exactly what I was internally, putting out there. Like a magnet.
No, I hear you, dude. I'm just looking at the chat room. I've seen somebody talking.
I'm just saying, if you're all pissed off, believe me, you'll meet up with somebody else who is just as pissed off as you, and you guys will come in and clash.
Well, it's like that would be like, since we were talking magic tonight, wouldn't that be almost the law of attraction?
There you go. It's like you're on the freeway and some dude doesn't let you merge or something like that. You get all pissed off and start, getting all aggro. And then all of a sudden, man, homeboy just follows you to work and that's it.
But we're seeing, you get road rage and we're seeing that now kind of spreading out. And in the digital world, it's worse than ever. You just have to say one wrong word or not even say it, because communication, you're just typing, and a lot of communication is lost because a lot of communication is pitch, tone, watching my face when I'm talking. Mm-hmm. And whenever these big events happen, and I don't want to start analyzing the big event that happened yesterday, tragic event, I do think it was real. And this is the point I'm making, because we're all meant to be kind of seeking answers. We all should be striving to make a better world and finding ways to come together. However, as a community, and I hate to put myself in a box, but we are a community, Jimmy. Call it the conspirasphere, call it whatever you want, right? When something like this happens, and I've noticed it now time and time again, there's an
the conspiracy.
Yeah, there's a knee-jerk reaction that the minute something happens, it's got to all be fake, or it's got to all be some kind of conspiracy. And it was Popeye, who'll be on tomorrow. He taught me that, Kev, you're best to wait at least 3 days. Sit back, analyze all the information coming in, watch all of the responses, all of the information that comes on social media, but don't get involved. And at the time I thought, wow, 3 days, man, that event's could be dead by the time I say anything about that. But he's right. He's absolutely right. And it was quite disgusting to watch some of the stuff that was coming out yesterday before even we knew how many people had lost their lives. We had John Podesta being blamed because he had been in New Zealand 5 days before the event or something. And that's not because people genuinely actually think John Podesta had anything to do with it. The people who were pushing that are the same people that push half of the scams on YouTube for clicks, for cash. Now, you could call me a hypocrite. Here I am, I've got a monetized channel. However, I don't put 2 and 2 together to come up with 10 to run with something just so I get attention on that story, be it true, fake, or otherwise. And when it says a big event like yesterday, Jimmy, especially with the atmosphere in the world right now, you were talking about in America, it's so polarized at the moment. And around the world, it's the same thing. And an event like this, it almost puts me off being a conspiracy theorist, because there's people who aren't awake or aren't looking at the information, must be looking at this and going, these people are off their head. They're actually trying to say nothing's happened here. And what did happen was some clown that used to be in government, who is a dodgy dude. I'm not sticking up for John Podesta, but he's not the devil incarnate. He's not going around the world organising all of these things that are going on, Jimmy. And I think, we have to really, really kind of be careful, because if we are trying to do the job that the mainstream aren't, we can't fall into the trap where we're just hyping and sensationalising and trying to find ways to get our content out there, and to hell with the truth. It's all about clicks.
Yeah, you're right. And, the thing about it is, man, is that, certain people have gotten famous by, predicting something ahead of time, saying that, and they were the ones that predicted it. And because of that, now you should listen to everything else that they say. And because that's sort of the model, people are always running around trying to predict stuff ahead of time, trying to say all this because they want to be right. Because if all you got to do is be right that one time, and then from that point forward, everybody's going to follow you and believe what you say. And so what's got created, Kev, I think, is this this intense need to be the first one out there, calling it out to be whatever the hell people are going to say it is. And so you're the first one, so that you're the first guy out there going, yeah, see, I told you it was a false flag.
Well, here's the one. I'll just to add to this, Jimmy. This was QAnon in response to somebody bringing up the fact that John Podesta had been in New Zealand recently. And pamphleting on. You can go and see QAnon, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, on the Patriot Soapbox. He sits there with his girlfriend, Radix. His name's Coleman Rogers, pamphleting on. It's not some government insider sitting there sending out memes and YouTube channel links all day. Funnily enough, it's just a clown from 4chan, 8chan. And he says here to this, these people are sick and evil. It's not a coincidence. It never is. Q. And that's because Podesta had been in the country. And of course, that tweet there, that post from Q, that triggered that army of Q-bots that they've formed. And this, for me, is really, really dangerous. John Podesta, not a good dude. No doubt he'll be accused for sticking up from here, Joe. But this guy is not the devil. He isn't running about the world organising false flags. And I tell you what, the live stream looked pretty real and pretty horrific to me, Joe. Not everything's faked.
Not everything's faked. No doubt. But the line separating reality from fake has been blurred. And it's hard to sometimes ascertain or use your discernment to figure it out because of the technology that's out there with deep fake and everything else. It can make it very difficult to figure out what's real and what's not. If what you're seeing, the person that's talking or giving a speech, if it's actually them. You know, right now they think they've got this thing about Melania Trump having body doubles out there. Question: do you actually blame her?
Nope.
With the way people are acting and behaving these days, I don't want to be around people if that's the way they're going to behave.
They go after the young boy, Barron. Is that his name? They go after him as well, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's a poor sap. I mean, it's not his fault that his dad's a freaking narcissistic megalomaniac, but it is what it is, you know? That child has absolutely no blame. Yeah, I mean, was he born with a silver spoon in his mouth? Yes, absolutely. Is that his fault? No, it's not his fault. You know, and it just seems to be like, it's almost elementary schoolish, you know?
Yeah, I will do a show on New Zealand at some point, but not just now. Not just now. It's too soon. It is too soon, and yeah. I just can't get over it.
What you got to do is you got to give that stuff time, dude.
That's what I was explaining when you were away. Popeye taught me that lesson, dude. 3-day rule. Leave it.
Yeah.
You know?
Because what ends up happening is everybody's fighting to be first.
Yeah.
They all fight to be first. And in doing so, they throw a bunch of shit out there that's just absolutely not true.
Yep.
So you always give it 3 days. You don't have to be the first one. You just want to be the right one. That's it. Just be right.
News broke.
Sure what you're putting out there is right.
News broke on the New Zealand thing yesterday, and I timed it, dude. 12 minutes until the association to Podesta and the cries of false flag went up.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, it couldn't have happened. What? Where's the blood? Where's all the splatter? Where's everything? Shut up. Let things settle down. Let the facts come out, and and the other thing is, don't give attention to these assholes that are seeking attention. Don't do it.
Now.
If they did it and they killed 49 people, right?
50 now, Joe.
Okay. If they killed 50 people, they did so because they wanted to get the attention of others or whatever. So you don't sate them by giving them camera time, showing their face, throwing their name out there, all that kind of stuff. Even you remember the BTK killer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Big time. Loved it. Loved the attention he was getting. Loved it. Even though, you know, he wasn't out there saying, hey, I'm BTK. No, he didn't. But he got satisfaction. You know, he got that release.
Dude, he was one of the...
Every time he saw the freaking media saying, oh, we don't know what's going on. Or who is this BTK in the mystery?
Scratch in the chat room. Same thing happened in Manchester. Absolutely, I'm getting feedback again. I don't know if it's Joe or I don't know if it's the headphones. I don't know. But it says same thing happened with Manchester within minutes. It's inevitable now, folks. And it is, you know, there are crisis actors. Not denying that. There are events where you definitely see some very questionable stuff going on, being pushed by the mainstream media. Not doubting that either. Not saying that's not true. However, you can't then just make the leap and say that everything is crisis actors and everything's fake, because that would mean we live in a perfect world where there's no bad things happen. And there are bad things that happen in this world, Jimmy. You know, I'd love to think all the bad stuff's fake, but it's not.
Well, I think you see an intense souring campaign that's going on right now because YouTube is trying to move into YouTube TV. And what they're doing is there's a big resurgence in the demonization of the word conspiracy theory. And it's getting to the point now where it's gotten so ridiculous that anybody that brings up anything about anything is a conspiracy theory back again like it used to be. And there's a bunch of people trying to disassociate themselves from anything associated with that.
I don't blame YouTube either, because there's a lot of grifters, a lot of scammers that are using conspiracy. Using conspiracies to get as their step.
Conspiracy. Look at the flat Earth bullshit, right? How much money did those asshats make off flat Earth?
Enough to buy a $20,000 gyroscope that proved the world was a globe.
Exactly. And I mean, look, I get it. People are so desperate to get that validation that, yeah, we're being lied to. Yeah, we're being fucked with. That they'll latch on to anything that has a sliver of hope that it's different, that we've been deceived, that the collapse is coming, that the earth is flat,
Joe,
that everything's going to destroy everything. But you want to know what? Doesn't happen. Go ahead.
I heard this guy call in, okay, to a
Yeah.
flat Earth show one time.
Yeah.
It was a caller.
Okay.
He called in, and he was a big flat Earth enthusiast, Joe.
Yeah.
He knew the world was flat. And then he found out, Joe, that there was stuff in the Bible about flat Earth. And he was calling in to say, Joe, that now he never in his life before believed, but now, because there's flat Earth stuff in the Bible, he believed in the Bible, Joe, cover to cover. What do you think about that?
So flat Earth led him to become a Christian because there's flat Earth information in that book. Hey,
Yeah, now
whatever
he
way you
believes
can get them in the door.
You know, the
Maybe
thing
it
is,
saved
though,
his
just
soul,
say-
dude.
You know, the thing is like believing in something and having faith in it makes it real for you, regardless of what that is. So let's say the world is, as we see it, a globe, and other people see it as and go to the Flat Earth Society. Their slogan is really funny. It's like da 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 around the globe. But go check it out. It's kind of funny. It's their actual webpage. But whatever you believe is real when you believe it, you know. And then when you get a consensus reality, Joe, which is like, you know, they've been driving America into believing in what's called a consensus reality, which is, you know, if there's enough of us that say that it is, then that's the way it is, you know. And if we don't ever change, we never disagree with, because we all agree it's the way it is, Joe, right? Consensus reality. There's enough of us. It's like a democracy almost. Enough of us say that this is a conspiracy theory video, then it is, and it gets thrown off YouTube.
See, I don't agree with things being thrown off YouTube.
Well, yeah.
Everyone should have their freedom of speech. However, that being said, you know, YouTube have to do something because, like we
But
say,
do they?
well,
But
in my opinion, they do, because over the past couple of years in particular, compared to when I started YouTube, things have changed, Joe. You know, I'm not saying we were always right back at the beginning or anything like that.
What you got to do, and it's very simple, right? Is you come up with standards, and they can't be vanilla. So you come up with standards, and you have to make everybody accountable to the same standards. That means that CNN, they have a YouTube channel, that if they're caught spreading false information, that they are held to the same standard and to the same account that Joe Schmuckatelli Truth Mania channel is held to. You know, just because that person isn't a quote media organization, or is he? You know, that's the other thing, is you have to have clear definitions. If you don't have clear definitions, then that's why you get all of this stuff that's occurring. So that's what you have to do. Now, they intentionally don't give clear definitions, because if they did, then you would have to hold everybody accountable and to the same standards. They don't do it. You know, and it's all because they need to promote their agendas. And that's what they do. YouTube, Google, they have an agenda. It's clear.
Mhm.
You know, Facebook has an agenda. They push political ideologies. They push all sorts of ideologies that they want to push.
Facebook, I think, are a bigger problem. Yeah, they're a bigger problem, Joe, aren't they? And I know, like, YouTube can kind of skew your feed with your subscriptions as well. I get that. However, the news feed on Facebook, I think, is a far bigger problem. They really do have the ability to change the mood of the populace. We've seen them admitting to that in experiments they've run. Whereas at least with YouTube, you can always choose not to watch something, right?
Yep.
Whereas Facebook, you've got to scroll past it, and whether you think you're not looking at it or not, your subconscious catches it. At least with YouTube, you can choose not to watch. That's why I say, and that's why I think Facebook are a far bigger problem. And been on YouTube, probably 10 years, close to 10 years, probably. The way it's changed has been unbelievable, bro.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Remember it used to be Ken Webb, Popeye, Enough Respect, back in the day, all that kind of stuff. Not to say we were all right or anything like that, but it was never like this. There was never like secret groups of people working together, putting false tweets out and then jumping on the tweet, hashtag gate this, hashtag gate that.
Well, and it was before Google Ads.
Yes.
And so that was huge and critical, right? Because the value added or the incentive.
The only incentive you got was your little, like in the UK, you could be like the number 3 YouTuber in the UK. You'd get a little reward. It was just a little badge. Yeah, that was it.
But now because of Google Ads and because of that monetization feature, now the snakes have come out of the woodwork and they've used it to their advantage. And that's what they are. They're clickbait. And so, I mean, that's what you get. So now YouTube has to manage that. I get that. That's important. But they set it up that way. And I think that what ends up happening is, channels like yours and others that are legitimately doing good stuff and good work, they end up being collateral damage for what's actually going on. And again, that's why it's so important that you have clear-cut definitions to what things are that are offenses so that you hold everybody to the same standard. Anything short of that is no good, and that's what we have.
And it's such bullshit too, because you got all these people running around like because something happened, they're getting censored somehow, like their ability to have their free speech or somehow is being violated or whatever. And they try to like use it as like a street cred moment or whatever. And it's just such, I mean, look, if YouTube is trying to be like anybody can watch TV up till a certain hour, they only have certain kind of content, and then after that they assume children are abed and they roll the more adult style stuff where people are getting together or whatever. If YouTube's trying to appeal to that type of audience and they're saying, hey, look, I'll put your content out in high definition or whatever, but I just need you to follow these certain guidelines or whatever, then boom, you're right. But there's no clear-cut guidelines. You don't know you violated it until they demonetize you and throw your channel.
And even then they don't tell you why you demonetized. But I seen Megaphone Man in the chat room. Before we wrap this up, guys, let you get back to your day, let everyone else get back to their streams. I've probably got a uni rock stream that I'm missing right now, and I'm desperate to see that. But he said, what happened to Hangar 18? Hangar 18's long dead. But the Weekenders is alive, and we can certainly not be the new Hangar 18 because there's only ever one Hangar 18. You could never replicate that show, but we will certainly be here most weekends to talk over whatever's happening during the week. We'll sometimes have a good guest on. Sundays, we get the live beard. That's Popeye. He comes on. Absolutely fantastic. And just before we go, get this, right? Talk about weird. Couldn't get to sleep last night, Joe, right? Came off the show at 2 a.m., sat there and went to bed. 6 in the morning came, right? I'm looking for something to watch. Aliens versus Predators. I'm like, all right, then. Never watched that before in my life, but interesting plot. From 2004, bearing in mind everything we've spoke about in recent times about Antarctica, the plot of this movie is they go down to the South Pole where they found an underground pyramid. And in that pyramid, there is this alien in chains. It's yes. But the thing that kind of had me laughing, shaking my head was, it was only maybe 2 years ago we were all sitting bamboozled at the fact why is like Buzz Aldrin, John Kerry, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, all these other people that we didn't hear about as well going down to the South Pole. What's going on down there? We've seen the pictures of pyramids coming up through the ice. And I know I'm probably biasing my opinion now after watching that movie. They hide things in plain sight. I am quite open now to the fact that there is some underground, not maybe pyramid like we've seen in that film, But we've got Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Remember he said his suspicion was that there's a giant hole. Well, he knew there was a giant hole, but at the bottom of that, we're talking about something held in stasis there, some kind of Nephilim, Joe. And I think that's what was basically being depicted in this movie. Yeah, it was a metaphor.
Yeah.
It's worth watching. Exactly,
yeah.
Dude. And I had to bring that up tonight before we went because we know we like the South Pole woo. Jimmy's going to be speaking to Brad Olson soon, who's just been to the South Pole. I'm going to be getting Brad Olson to speak to him as well on here, hopefully, because Brad loves going on the camera. And we're going to speak to a real-life physical person who has been to the South Pole, Joe.
Yeah, and he lives right here in Santa Cruz, so maybe I'll have Brad come over to my house and we could do the video from here.
Well, I think he lives in Colorado now, so it might be a problem.
Well, he's up there. Yeah, he's up there on vacation, man. He's coming back in 2 weeks. I talked to him yesterday.
Anything from the chat before we go, boys? Somebody's talking about Nephilim and chains, entrance to Hollow Earth, Hitler's submarines. How about all three?
Yeah, I'll take all of the above, please.
Absolutely. Well, guys, it's been great having the guys here. Great having Ryan here as well. Oh, new subscriber, Vincent Naris. Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you very much.
Big shout out to Marty Lauderdale in the chat as well. New member of the Kev Baker Show YouTube channel. Thank you, YouTube, for giving me the membership button. And if you want to join, you can. If you don't have to. All it does is it gives you unique emojis like Alex Jones, the gay frog, Elon Musk smoking a big fatty, and soon to be Joe Joseph in one of his various Photoshop poses. Yes. So we'll be back tomorrow night. Somebody in the chat room, Doc Ram rocks. He really, really does. I urge you all check out Unirock if you haven't checked him out already. He certainly keeps all of these LARPers on their toes, and he'll tell you who to watch and who not to watch. Does a brilliant job. Try to think. Glow, another good channel. Roosevelt, another good channel. Fucking Freddy, FKN Freddy, another good one. OG Wan Kenobi as well. These people are really trying to keep YouTube clean or make YouTube great again. As
YouTube great again,
as Donald Trump would say. But folks, until next time, let me love you and leave you. Remember, don't be hating on anyone. Don't be starting any fights on social media. Leave that to me. I'm the trigger happy man on social media. And we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow with the live beard. Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Everybody mañana.
If we get some tunes. There we go. We'll get some tunes to play us out. There we go, boys.